I get the honor and privilege of bringing to the front my next guest, who I've gone to school with from elementary school. I think we went to middle school together, high school. I've known her pretty much my whole life. We grew up in the same neighborhood. We had very similar, parallel lives in a way. We both had kids young as teenagers. Our grandbabies, our first grandbabies were born almost maybe a month apart. But she is a wife, she is a mother, she is very much committed to the community. She is an entrepreneur, and I'm bringing to the stage Felicia Hastings. Welcome to the Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you for
Good.
having me.
Yeah, looking beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. So when I reached out to Felicia, I said, first, I said, can you talk a little bit about the work that you do? Because she works with the community. Hold on, right quick. But then when I thought about it, I was like, wait a minute. She had her baby at 18. And when I see the relationship that she has with her daughter, it is like none other. When I saw the pictures from her daughter's wedding, there's this one that I will never forget where they have their heads together and Felicia is smiling ear to ear, and just that closeness that most people can only dream about, that I know that I can only dream about. I said, I got to have you talk about that as well. So growing up, we knew each other. We had these parallel lives. Went to some of the same schools. Grew up in the same community, South Central Los Angeles. But then, when you tell me about you becoming a mom and how you, I don't know if you had planned ahead or not, but how did that come to be?
Well, no, I didn't plan ahead. I was in high school, pregnant at 17. I was at grad night pregnant, walked the stage pregnant, ended up delivering in November. So I had already graduated when I physically had my daughter. But growing up with her at the age of 18 wasn't a cakewalk, but it was a great experience.
Thank you so much. And I was pregnant with my son at 17.
Mhm.
Uh, got pregnant probably just before the prom. I might have been like a month, actually right after the prom. And I probably was a month pregnant when we graduated high school. And then had him when I was 18. But tell me a little bit about like how your support system was at that time.
Oh my gosh. It's surprisingly, I told my mom first that I was pregnant. My mom is cool, calm, and collective. She was like, we just gonna do what we gotta do, right? And then her dad at the time was away in college at Norfolk, Virginia. But his family was already familiar with me. They knew me. So I wasn't just somebody. We had been together since junior high school, since ninth grade. So I was pregnant in 12th grade. So his family knew me. So they were supportive. My dad, oh, he was like ballistic. He was throwing chairs. He was like, oh my gosh, what are you going to do? Because he had this idea for me, what he wanted me to do, go to college, whatever. And my mindset was like, all right, I'm gonna show you better than I can tell you. So whereas once I delivered, my baby was like his baby then. I think as soon as I delivered, I came home to like 100 outfits laid on the bed. He went shopping, so he was so excited. And today they're like BFFs. And my daughter and my grandmother are BFFs, but my support group was phenomenal. I still took advantage of some of the government programs like county and WIC and Crystal Stairs and things like that, but I used it to my advantage and then did away with it. But the support group was phenomenal, phenomenal on both
And
parts.
I had to ask because I see how your parents were until your mom passed with your daughter, and like just everybody's relationship was so tight. And I see your dad is always there, and so I was like, I know that support system had to be tight, and I
Oh
think
yeah,
that's the difference with people who have good experiences while having kids young and not having good experiences. um
absolutely.
your daughter is just having looks to be having an amazing life experience, and she got married a few years ago and now she has two kids, right?
Yes.
How old is the baby?
The baby Tyson is 1. He'll be 2 on June the 15th, and Dylan will be 7 on April 14th.
Okay, April. So he's three, April, May, June, July. He's 3 months older than Sincere. Um, yeah, so absolutely amazing. And what kind of work did you do after you had your daughter?
So after I had my daughter, I got my first job around the age 16. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I don't remember exactly what work I did when I first started doing, when I first became pregnant. But I think before she was the age of 1, I went to cosmetology school. So I said, you know what? I have a daughter. I'm going to cosmetology school. I'm going to make sure that her hair is good. And then after I went to cosmetology school, I went to school to get my degree in interior design. So that's what I did, mostly cosmetology. I was doing hair right here from my home, never went into a salon, never had an interest. That wasn't my goal. My interest was to make sure that that wasn't an expense that I had to pay. So I made sure, as she got older, not as a kid. So I was doing hair. And then after I did hair, after a while, my background has always been customer service. So I worked for some major corporations, American Honda, Nissan North America. Those are like two of the companies that I worked at in the early 1990s, leading into 2000. And then I went into education, working at a high school.
Yeah, because I remember I came to View Park to
Hmm.
interview and you were there. And I was like, oh my God, like I didn't know that you were there. But I remember that. And I remember hearing you talk about going to cosmetology school.
Hmm.
But I think that those choices were really good because one of my biggest regrets was going to college as much as I did, and I wasn't there with my kids. And if I
Hmm.
had to do over again, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't
Hmm.
want to be available to spend more time with my kids. But
Hmm.
getting the degrees that I got, and then being a teacher, you're at school all day,
Right.
and tutoring after school. I had taken a pay cut in order to teach. So like then I had to make those ends meet.
Hmm.
Um, and every summer I was working summer school. And so like those are some of my biggest regrets that I don't recommend for anybody. But I remember in high school, you were an entrepreneur already. I remember folks bringing you jeans for you would like take their jeans and like freak them out and tie dye some parts and all kind of stuff. I was like, wow,
Hmm.
and so when I saw you now go into fashion, I was like, no surprise, you've been that way your whole life. How did you even think about doing something like that as a business?
So my grandfather was an entrepreneur. My grandfather was an interior designer. He worked with several celebrities, and that's what he did. So I watched him, literally like this chair I'm sitting in right now. My grandfather made this chair. We
Wow.
still have the original furniture that my grandfather actually made. He was a reupholsterer and an interior designer. So I was like, I love doing that. So that's what made me go into the field of interior design. And I just always had that like hustle mentality. I remember being a kid at my grandmother's house and they had an office. I used to literally go get canned foods and make like I was own my own grocery store. I would tally
Wow.
up the groceries and things like that, put them in the bag and do stuff, to keep me busy. But my mind always kept going like, what can I do to be my own boss? Now, where I haven't always been an entrepreneur, I've always had that mindset of an entrepreneur. But my grandfather, I would say, was my inspiration from the entrepreneur side. My parents, both of my parents worked at the post office. That's where they met. They retired
Mm.
early together on the same day. So
Wow.
I experienced early retirement from my parents, so they got to experience life early. I think they was in their early 50s when they retired from the post office. But that afforded my mother a lot of time to be there for my daughter. My daughter's other grandmother was a singer with background for Anita Baker, so my daughter got to experience that. She didn't have that much time with her, but when she did, she was at her Duchess house. So that village was there. And then my girlfriends, very supportive and helping watch my daughter and bringing her up and everything. So it was definitely a village. And when my daughter was young, at the age of 6, I decided to put her in cheerleading. So I was her cheer coach from the age 6 all the way to 14. So there was my volunteer side, which I saw my mother do with me and my dad do it as well.
Wow. I
Mhm.
love that. So you in cheer as a kid as well?
I did all my life. I was a cheerleader.
Wow. So like I love that because now we're seeing the benefit of the generational good habits and the
Yes.
outcomes of that. Because I know even your grandson was playing football, I
Mhm.
saw recently. And so like those generational good habits just keep multiplying for
Yes.
positive. Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. Um what was your if you I don't know if you know, but what were your parents' childhood? What was their childhood like?
So my dad actually grew up in Birmingham. So he was around with the Martin Luther King movement. Literally, my dad shared the same jail cell as Dr. Martin Luther King. He tells that story all the time.
Wow.
So yeah, so today is like his day to celebrate. So
Mhm.
he shared the same jail cell with Dr. Martin Luther King. So he grew up in that era with that's hit the ground running. My mom, my mom was an athlete. She played softball when she was growing up. She did bowling, so she stayed active, but she was always, always volunteering in the community. As I was growing up, she and my cousin Desiree Hall, her mom
Mhm.
and my mom, they had an organization called Lend a Helping Hand. So we saw that giving back, you know. So that's what I've always seen. And like I mentioned, they did Pop Warner giving back as president, coach, or whatever. But just my mother has 3 siblings, and my grandparents always made sure that they were active, and it just spilled over to us as well.
I love that. I
Mhm.
love that. And the reason I'm even asking that is because I want parents to be able to see how the work that we do now, whatever we do with our kids, good or bad, is probably going to multiply in
Yeah,
who they become down the line. And so if we instill these good habits now, we can multiply those good habits for future generations. And so I'm glad to see that.
I
Um,
agree.
yeah. So then when you got into education, to working in education, how did you end up making that move to the schools?
So I was working for American Honda at the time. And one of my supervisors, she said, "You know what? You have good customer service skills. My daughter works for the organization ISEF. And I think you would be good. They have this position called, at the time, it was called a parent liaison." And she said, "I'm going to do a connection, see if you good, fit, or whatever." Went to the interview. And that's how I ended up at View Park. So I was there for 2009 to 2015. They had a layoff time in 2015. But being a parent liaison, till this day, I have a lot of people that I'm friends with on Facebook. I can be in the grocery store. They like, "Hey, Miss Walker." That's my maiden name. "Hey, Miss
Mhm.
Walker." So they really, really know me because being a parent liaison, I had the relationship with parents, the students, because not only was I the parent liaison, I organized all of the activities, homecoming, prom, every activity that the school had, I was the organizer. So that afforded me the opportunity to build that relationship with the parents because I have to deal with them with money and financials, and the
Mhm.
students because I made sure that whatever they wanted to do, they had that opportunity to do it because you can't redo high school over, you know.
Yep.
So that was a great experience in that role because then I had the opportunity to do the community. When the Endeavor came by, I was there. When they were building the train, they had to come and speak to me so I can speak to the parents and tell them what was coming up or what have
Wow.
you. But it was a great opportunity. And then having that relationship with the teachers. So I know a lot of people because of cheerleading and just being at View Park because it was right there in the community on Crenshaw and Slauson.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, being from South Central Los Angeles, we don't always hear these stories.
Mhm.
We hear the stories of gang activity and stuff. And I tell people all the time, even the gang members, I knew them. And I
Mhm.
knew that a lot of them were not just bad people. Some of them
Mhm.
were really good kids that got connected with some people that they did some bad things, but they
Absolutely.
weren't just like bad people, you know.
Right, right.
Um,
And I think it's the rapport that you build because those kids, they need love. So if little
mhm,
John over there, this was my approach. I'm like, come on now, get it together. Like, oh,
mhm.
Miss Walker, no, we're not gonna do that. And they appreciated that, you know. They really appreciated that. You have to give them some love, and we definitely gave them that. We had a great team. And I missed that part, I missed that part. And even those parents that would come in kind of rah rah. Those parents today are my friends because I let them speak. They
Mhm.
have a voice. I let them speak. And I still today have this one parent. She's like, Miss Walker, if it wasn't for you. And she just keeps me abreast of every step of her daughter's journey. Her daughter just bought a house and she shared that with me. Here we are years
Wow.
later. So I think the relationships that we build are very, very important. And I taught that with my daughter, on what she does. I only have one daughter, so I want to make sure that she's guided in a way that can benefit herself and her family.
I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
And when you said you gave those parents an opportunity to be heard,
Mhm.
that's usually all that they need is to know that
Absolutely.
somebody heard them and didn't shut them down.
Mhm. Right.
And it's the same with kids. Like, I've
Mhm.
never had a problem with students, with children, because if you just show them that you care about them, you're willing to hear them out, even if you have to tell them they're wrong in the end, they're okay with it as long as they know that you've heard them out. But when you
Right.
tell kids, you should don't ask me no questions and that
Mhm.
kind of energy, they're going through the roof with it. We don't
Absolutely.
want to be disrespected like that. So why do we
Right.
think it's okay to talk to kids that way?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's so good that folks are still staying in touch with you because that shows the real relationship that has happened.
Yeah.
Um, Now, moving back into entrepreneurship, I know a few years ago you like reimagined the ice cream truck as a mobile fashion boutique. And I was like, go ahead. Like,
Mhm.
what was your inspiration behind that?
So in 2015, so going backwards, around 2012, my aunt, who was my dad's sister, she had a bag of used pre-owned clothes, which I absolutely love, 'cause I think they're gems, vintage pieces or what have you. And she said, I have this bag of clothes. I don't know what you can do with it. I was like, all right, give it to me. At the time, my daughter had this little piano set. I turned the legs upside down and I literally used that as my clothing rack. So I took those clothes that she had, put them in my dining room, and I just started saying, "Hey, come shop with me." But at the time, I was doing hair in my kitchen. So my clients that was getting their hair done, when they leave, stop to the dining room, buy you something, and leave. One day I wrote down that I wanted something really quaint where I can just kind of go anywhere I want to and give the clients an opportunity to shop. And I was like, a mobile truck. Now, let's be clear. I am not the only person with a mobile boutique. There's others out there. However, we each have our own little niche. So that was my whole purpose behind it. Something that was quaint, give them like a style and lounge. And that's what I offer. That experience that you get when you go shopping, you can get it mobile, whether it's in front of your house, your work, in the community, farmers markets, or whatever. And when people come on, they like, oh my gosh, this is a real store. I'm like, yeah. And we have for real situations. So no, there's
Mhm.
no, can I get this for $5? No, we're gonna do just like you do when you go to Macy's or a Nordstrom's or a
Yep.
Target or whatever, and they treat it as such. And it's a great, I love it. I love
And
it.
even with a dressing room.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because
you
I
get the
remember a
complete
few years
experience.
Yes.
Mhm.
A few years ago, you had a birthday party in your backyard and you
Mhm.
had the truck there and I was able to come in and try on. I was like,
Mhm.
it's a real dressing room right here.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, it was perfect. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not even surprised because you do everything with excellence. But it
Yeah.
was beautiful. And so like you're one of those people that all you can do is root for you to win in everything that you do, because you give out such good energy all the time that you only expect to receive. I only expect you to receive the good energy back,
I
you know?
appreciate that. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. And I believe in giving people their plants while they're here, and I appreciate that, the kind words, because that's the whole goal in life is to do things with excellence. I'm about executing well, and I don't do it well all the time, but I try to you know, plan things out thoughtfully. Whenever I give an event, you ask my friends, I'm doing a mock right before. Even when we did our wedding, I set up the whole backyard before the wedding because I wanted to make sure that it was executed with excellence, you know, and I appreciate that. I
That's so
appreciate
good to hear. And going back to that birthday party, one of the things that I was so impressed with you about was you're not just about yourself, you're about helping other people in their businesses.
that.
And you had multiple businesses represented there. You had one friend that had a juice bar, you had a
Mm-hmm.
massage guy there, you had a DJ
Hmm.
there, and then there was a
Hmm.
point where you drew everybody together and had everybody, you shouted out
I did.
everybody's business.
I
And
did.
I was like, you don't see that. Like most
Absolutely.
people don't even imagine that. But you not only imagined it, executed it in order to, because you just have a heart to help
Hmm.
people. And so I'm not surprised that you ended up going back in the service field,
Right. Yeah.
to your job. You were like, I don't have to do this job, but I
Right.
want to do this job. And I was
Absolutely.
like, tell me a little bit about that.
So I've been an entrepreneur for a while. So backtrack a little bit. In 2018, when my daughter was pregnant and she was having a baby, during the time I was working for a major cruise line. I don't know if I should say it on this platform, but I was working for a major cruise line and I wasn't really feeling it. I was working from home. It was good, but working commission for them wasn't something that I'm like, I'm making all this commission. I got this award in the mail. You sold over $1 million cruises. I mean, a million cruises, blase, blase. And I kept
Wow.
calling off and kept calling off and kept calling off. And when my daughter was getting ready to deliver, I had exhausted all my time. And I said, they're not about to tell me that I can't call off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quit. And I walked away. And when I walked away, that actually, you there?
Yeah. Oh, can you not see me? Did I disappear?
I see you.
Okay.
Okay. So when I walked away from that major cruise line, that gave me an opportunity to kind of focus in on my business. And then shortly after, I said, you know what? I'm going to go back into the work field. I had an opportunity to go into working where I can help the community. And I said, you know what? Why not? I can still do both. I have my clothing boutique, I'm a travel agent, and I also rent out our backyard for another source of income. So as you know, I have this T-shirt which you have called "My Masoy, My Multiple Streams of Income" because I strongly believe in having those multiple streams of income. So going on 2 years now, I've gone back to the workforce, which I absolutely, absolutely love. It's kind of hard being an entrepreneur and going back to work for somebody, but anything that's rewarding, then is good. It's good.
Yeah. Tell us what it is that you do now.
So currently, I work for Crystal Stairs in a resource and referral department where we actually assist families that need resources or referrals. We also assist with providers, updating providers' information. And so I am like the main contact. I'm the only contact person in the whole organization that can assist families with direct resources to other organizations.
Oh, that's good. And what kind of resources do they provide?
So we offer resources such as housing, employment, if you're experiencing domestic violence, also ADA, well, special needs. We assist with getting families resources with special needs, food bank, um, let's see, immigration. legal, parenting, but our main one is housing, of course, unfortunately. Housing and employment, those are the ones that are the main ones that I get referrals for all the time.
Understandable, because being in Los Angeles is expensive to live. You know, a lot of the jobs are a lot of the apartments and housing require you to earn three times the rent, which is hard for most people to do. Most people
Right.
don't have that. And then
Hmm.
having the good credit, especially coming out of COVID, where there were times where people, you know, didn't have work, so they couldn't maintain their credit.
Exactly.
And so I can
Exactly.
imagine that being
Exactly.
a big need.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And the good part about it is I work with this organization, but we partner with another organization. So we're giving the clients backdoor resources. So it's not just here, call this person and you're on your own, but there is a criteria. You have to work within a certain spa area, and we're assisting families that have children between the age of 0 to 5. Now, if you don't meet that criteria, we're going to give you the resources and you have to follow up on your own. But if you fall within that criteria, I'm going to connect you directly with somebody that can provide you with assistance in housing or special needs or education or whatever the case may be. So I think it's a very unique system, and it's good to see the people that are taking advantage of it. But you won't believe that it's so many people that request assistance and don't even take advantage of it. It's
wow.
like, yeah.
What do you think stops them?
No follow through. Some of the people, there's certain criterias that you have to meet and you have to do your part. So if you're requesting housing assistance, they may tell you to submit these paperwork or what have you, or come
Mhm.
down by this time. And some people just don't plan ahead and may not make it. Now you want us to rearrange our schedule because you didn't take the time to plan accordingly. And now you've taken away from somebody that probably already had their things in order. Now
Yeah,
they can come back and do another referral, but now you're putting in a whole nother 5 to 7 business days time frame or what have you. So I just think the proper planning, and you really have to really want it. Where you
yeah,
may need it, you have to really want it.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Because they're definitely gonna. There's still a process, you know, and there's people that have to do the work on the back end. I understand it. Um, and then when I think about those resources, I remember in 2009 when the economy tanked. I was teaching. It was my third year, end of my third year teaching in Linwood Unified School District, and they ended up laying off everybody that had been there 3 years and less.
Mm.
And I qualified for the unemployment. I had applied, but because so many people got laid off at the same time, unemployment was backed up. And I mean, they were not just at my school, in multiple industries, people were getting laid off in that time. And I remember going down to the welfare office and
Mhm.
saying, like, I need something. I need some help
Mhm.
until this unemployment kicks in. And they were like, oh, you own a car? Like, you can sell your car and get food. And I was like, not going to happen.
Right.
But they just didn't offer me anything at that time. And I think that the system has gotten a lot better now.
Mhm.
But I remember being in a city, luckily I had my grandma, so I just, I had resources
Mhm.
accessible, but my grandma was disabled and, on Social Security. So I didn't want to have to go
Mhm.
to her. But while I was waiting for that unemployment to kick in, I needed those services, even with
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
degree. And because
Absolutely.
the whole economy was jacked up. Nobody could find work at that time.
Mhm.
I almost left education at that time.
Mhm.
I was actually, Nick Howard is the one that brought me back into education because I was done. I had made up my mind I was done with education in 2009, and I had went and applied for, like, to work at Target as a
Mhm.
manager. I was gonna be done with it. And he was like, I found, it was like 2010 by the time that he found my resume. He's like, I found your resume. I want you to come and interview. And that's when I ran into you at View Park. But he's the one that brought me back. He's also the one that got me my first job in Sacramento. So
Wow.
yeah, it's crazy. Crazy how
Wow.
that all worked out.
Absolutely. I love
Yeah.
that. I love that.
Yeah. But that's also again about who you know. It's about building
Hmm.
those relationships, building those connections that last. And then you never know when you're going to come back across somebody. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so just I love having that access that I wouldn't have I wouldn't have had access to. But it's good to know that people now have these types of resources that can help them with housing, that can help them get
Hmm.
jobs, especially coming out of COVID. And I feel like we're headed into another area where we're going to need that again with AI, because
Oh
AI
yeah.
is replacing a lot of jobs. They say it's going to replace 10 million jobs, 100 million jobs over the next 10 years. And we see it. We see it. You go to McDonald's. I don't eat McDonald's usually, but if I go there and get a sweet tea, I'm gonna order it on the app. I'm probably not going
Hmm.
inside and stand in line or anything like that. If I go to Starbucks, which I often don't do either, but if I do it on the app, and that's eliminating jobs.
Yeah.
So I can see there's going to be a need for people to have access to resources like the ones that you offer. Um, but now to swing to the grandbabies, because I remember when I saw that your daughter was having a baby, um, and and then my daughter was having a baby at the same time. I wasn't
Mhm.
excited about my daughter having a baby. I mean, it was her senior year in college. She was
Mhm.
24, but still, I was not excited about it. And until he was here, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Probably the same reaction your dad had,
Yeah, right. I
because
was just gonna say that.
same thing. And I was like, "Oh, that's my baby. That's me. That's me. Give him here." But what was your first reaction when you found out your daughter was having a baby, and like take us through that process?
You know, we were excited. First off, it was because of who she was to having the baby by. Her and now husband, they were high school sweethearts. But I think the most rewarding part is his family have the same morals as our family. So that made it even more so enjoyable. We're on the same wavelengths as grandparents, his aunts, his whatever. So it was like, okay, cool. We already know that this is going to be a well loved baby. And I know that when the baby's going to be with his side of the family, they good and vice versa. So we were good. And he's a stand-up gentleman. So it was like, and she's a phenomenal woman as it is. So I knew she was going to be a phenomenal mother, as she's a phenomenal
Mhm.
daughter. So I was like,
Mhm.
cool. She was responsible. She was at the time, I think she was working for Head Start, because she started out, she was a Head Start teacher. So I think she was working for Head Start at the time. And then she transitioned to work for LAUSD Head Start. And then so they were setting their careers. My son-in-law at the time was away at college at Lane College, and he came home for the delivery from Tennessee. I think that's where Lane is, from Tennessee for the birth of the baby, and we were excited. I mean, who could be mad at that? They had a plan. They weren't married yet, but shortly after, I think when my grandson was 3 or 2, he proposed to her, and then they were married, and now they're been married going on 4 years, and now with
Wow.
2 kids. So again, because, and not to say that if the father's upbringing or support group wasn't the same, that the babies weren't going to be in good hands, but that made it even more better,
Yeah.
to
Yep.
have a
100%.
great upbringing on both sides. So it was good. It was good. We were excited. Um, she's been a great mom. She's very conscious of different things. I looked at your first podcast that you had with the eating and everything. That's her. McDonald's is a treat for them. Not too long ago, my grandson um, won the principal of the day at his school, and he had an opportunity to have lunch for whatever restaurant he wanted, and he chose McDonald's because he doesn't get it often, you
Yep.
know. So that's, he was like, "Ooh, I'm going to get me some McDonald's." But nothing against those that eat it often, but that's just where they are with their family. So
Yep.
we're excited that we were having a grandson, or a grandchild in general, and they're phenomenal parents.
I remember seeing you. You were beaming, and it does. I can see that it would be when you know that the other side of the family is going to be amazing as well. And
Mhm.
when I see you and his mom, Y'all look like y'all could be best friends,
Mhm.
sisters, whatever, because y'all are so close. Now, are you only child?
No. So I'm the baby. I have an older brother and I have a sister, but I'm my only child with my parents together. So
Oh,
my
okay.
sister has a mom and my brother has a different father. Now, my daughter is the only child from me, and her husband's the only child from his mom. So they're the only kids, but their dads have other children. And when you said his mom and I were like best friends, it's funny because when they were in high school, my daughter was a cheerleader and her husband was the quarterback. They played football and cheerleading together. His mom and I, we were the parents in the stands doing the cheers, supporting the kids,
Yep.
putting other kids in our car, and she got the football players in the car. So that's just that we saw each other when they was in high school. And so now just fast forward of us being grandparents together, and that's my daughter's mother-in-law, is just like, whew, this is just rewarding.
Yeah, I love that. I love it so much. And because you know what, we don't see. I can say I've been to more funerals than weddings, you
Absolutely.
know, and we just don't often see, especially young Black people getting married and having that family structure. But I think it's really important. And what I also love is that you got married recently, and one of my biggest personal regrets is that because I didn't want to be the person that had, all these boyfriends in front of my kids. So I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the danger with that is that they didn't get to see what a responsible relationship, a healthy relationship look like.
Mm-hmm.
And even though you got married recently, your daughter always had your parents to look
Mm-hmm.
at a healthy relationship, right? My mom had died before my kids were born. My dad was single when my kids were small. Their dad's mom was single. Their dad's dad had passed away as well. And so they didn't get to see that example here.
Mm-hmm.
But the beautiful thing is that your daughter did get to see that, and now she gets to live that and give that example to her kids.
And she gave the example to me, being that she was married before I was married. So she was able to be that example to me, her 49-year-old mother at the time, never been married. And she didn't see many or hardly any guys coming through the house because it's different when you have a daughter. Not to say that is not the same as you have a son. I just didn't bring men in my house,
Mhm,
so she didn't see
mhm.
that. She saw me in relationships, but were they the healthiest? I can't say that they were. So fast forward to my husband, he was my very first boyfriend. When I was 10, he was 12 at the time, and I was a cheerleader and he was a football player. So our stories are similar to my daughter and her husband as far as being athletes. And my husband and I, we were puppy love when we were kids, and we literally reconnected on Facebook in 2023, and now here we are married at 2025. So
I love it.
mhm.
It's so good to see that because also there's some people who've given up because they've reached a certain age and like I have this idea that I want to be married by a certain age, and if it doesn't happen they give up. But I get to see and have that role model in you
Mhm.
that you can even get married at 49 and it can still be a beautiful thing. You don't have to give
Absolutely.
up on it.
No, not at
Yeah.
all, because I had given up. I had given up. I
Oh,
had thought I would never be married. But when you go into things with intentions, where he came in as an intention, like we are intentionally dating because we started dating in February 2023. He proposed in October 2023. And then we were married in September 2024. So when you do things intentionally, then, they'll work out.
I love that. But also you having that history,
Yeah.
having that history with your parents.
Hmm.
Now I'm curious, and you can say if you don't want to answer this,
Hmm.
but did you know you only wanted to have one kid, or did you want to have more and didn't,
I
or
knew I
what was?
wanted to have one kid's father. So if it didn't work out with that one kid's father, then I wasn't having anymore. And so,
Okay.
yeah, that's how that is, because I didn't want to have all these different, and it never worked out to where I felt that I wanted to have any more, because my how can I say this? My way of bringing more kids in wasn't working. So I said, I'm good with one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm good with
that's smart. You have one, I have two. My
one.
daughter has four.
Hmm.
Um, and wow. So your daughter's multiplied your number so far. So she went
Hmm.
from one to two. My daughter's multiplied my number from two to four.
Hmm. Hmm.
But um, and I was the same way. I didn't want my kids to have different dads. My kids have the same dad. And I
Hmm.
remember telling him years ago, I said, when Janice is 5, I want to have another baby. And I was like, I don't care who you with at the time. I'm having it with you. Right.
Okay.
But by the time she was 5, then I was celibate. So I was like, I'm celibate now, not having sex
Hmm.
with anybody. So so that changed. And then anyways, I'm grateful that I had my two, and that's it. You know,
Yeah.
I remember my daughter Janet Jackson had a baby at 50. And when I
Mm.
was 40, my daughter called me and was like, "Did you see Janet Jackson had a baby at 50?" I was like, "Yeah, that's crazy." She was like, "That means you can have a baby at 40." I said, "I make sure I'm not having a baby at 40. What are you
Right.
talking about?" You know, but I did consider being a foster mom, you know, at that
Mhm.
age. Now that I have my grandbabies, I'm like, I got plenty of kids to
Yes.
foster with them. I
Yes.
don't need to do that. But that was something I had considered because as a teacher, I got to see kids being removed from their homes. And they
Hmm.
were some of them were good kids. And I was like,
Yes.
I hope that they are protected wherever they go. But you hear the stories about kids not being protected in foster care.
Hmm. Hmm.
Is that a part of what you guys do? Is do y'all help with foster kids or anything like that with Crystal Stairs?
So we do have a program called the Bridge Project, the Bridge program, where foster parents can get assistance with getting their foster child into childcare. So yeah, it's called the Bridge program at Crystal Stairs. The process is a little bit different than just a non-foster parent, but yeah, it's called the Bridge program at Crystal Stairs.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
That's good. What advice would you give to other teen moms who um, may or may not have the same support system that you have, but so that they can still raise kids who have a great life experience?
I, I'm a firm believer that if you know that your experience wasn't good, or if you had some not so good experience coming up, then it's all in the mindset. You have to have the mindset that I want different for my kids because I know what I didn't have, you know. And we may not have it all, but just try to make sure you build those memories, and because you can't get things back, you know. So I would just say to just be mindful of what you may have had or what you didn't have or you want to have for your kids, and just build on that. Because I think every opportunity, I don't care if it's just sitting on the grass picking leaves, that's a memorable opportunity that you and your child have. You know, so just make sure that whatever you want for yourself, make sure that you want better for your child. And that was always my mindset. You know, I want to have better. And not that I can't even remember myself getting maybe one whooping in my life. I wasn't the best kid, but I didn't get a lot of whoopings or anything. And I don't even know if I ever whooped my child, maybe once or twice, because she wasn't a bad kid, you know. And again,
Mhm.
we weren't perfect, but we just did a lot of things together. And I made sure that she stayed active and around good people. By her being the only child, ironically, a lot of her friends were the only child too, you know. So I just would just say, just whatever you didn't have growing up, make sure you want to have better for your child, and just put yourself in a positive mindset.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
love that. And because you were so active, the beautiful part of it is because you were so active in her life and as the cheer coach and things like that, you got to see the other families that were, you know, good role models that she could spend time with.
Absolutely.
Um, and I think that that's important for families that don't have that same support system at home.
Hmm.
If they can find surrogate support systems, that
Hmm.
they can get their kids involved in activities where they can be around those role models and, you know, the men and women who are going to show them, you know, a positive route to go, then that would
Absolutely.
help them as well.
Absolutely. And I see them doing the same thing with my grandson. You know, he, like you mentioned, he's playing Pop Warner football. And my son in law, this was his first year as being a coach. And my daughter was on the sideline as a team mom. You know, so again, they're showing them ways that I'm going to be active with you. So when
Yeah.
he, you know, decides to become a parent, that he will remember my parents were active with me. So I'm going to be active. And that's what I remember having my mom. My dad was in the military, then he was in the reserve. So whereas he was away for some times, my mom would take me down to the reserve base or what have you. We would have our family time and he would come home. But she was always active. I can't remember not one event that my mother wasn't present. And the same with my daughter. If I couldn't be there, my mother was there or her Duchess was there. Somebody was always there. So I would just say make sure you're present at any event. I see you at your grandkids, whether it's a spelling bee, an
Yeah.
award ceremony,
Yeah.
those kids are looking for you. I remember a cheer
Yeah.
coach. I remember one time it was a cheer competition. I remember one of my cheerleaders saying, "Is our time coming up? My mother's not here." And I felt so bad because I don't know if her mother was going to make it or whatever. And I had to say, she's coming, she's here, you know, just so that she can go out on that stage and perform. But those kids look for that support system. And it's
Yeah.
so important because they didn't ask to be here. So I would
Yeah.
definitely say just try to be that support system in any way, whether they're a not so good kid or whatever, still support them. Still
Yeah.
support
And and I don't believe there are bad kids. I think that there are kids like if we don't train our kids on our expectations, they're going to do something different. They're
them.
gonna do whatever
Absolutely.
they're thinking about doing. And you can
Absolutely.
always train kids to follow your expectations. That's what I
Mhm.
had to do as a teacher.
Mhm.
And I saw my best friend's mom did that with me. Like when I would come over her house, they're from Trinidad. You say,
Mm.
"Good morning, Mrs. Thomas. Good afternoon, Mrs. Thomas." Like this is what
Right.
you do when you come over there. And the times that I didn't, you back at the door practicing. you
Okay.
know,
Okay.
and and then you learn. I still, when I
Mhm.
see her today, it's good morning, Mrs. Thomas, and we've
Mhm.
been friends for over 40 years. She's more like a mom to
Wow.
me than anything. But
Wow.
I know to speak. You don't walk past somebody without speaking. And I was
Absolutely.
just really shy and quiet at that time. So it wasn't natural for me to just be good morning, Mrs. Thomas. But you learned,
Mhm. Mhm.
you
Absolutely.
know. And
I agree.
we have the ability to impact kids if we choose to do that. And times have changed some to where people don't feel comfortable correcting other people's kids.
Oh
Because
my gosh.
you'll have some people that are like, don't tell me how to raise my
Yeah.
kids, and don't say nothing to my kid. You let me do it. And I'm like, you're doing your own kid a disservice with
Right.
that mindset. But
Right.
we're raised in that time period where we gonna correct somebody, and you can respectfully correct them.
Right.
You don't have to go off on them, but be respectful and share what you need to share with them, because there are some parents out there who do want to know what's better and may not have had the parents to give them the guidance on what to do. And so
Absolutely.
then, and that's why I created this platform, because I was like, those
Mhm.
people who are interested. I took some child development courses at Southwest College. My kids were in high school at the time. And there was so much that I learned in those classes. I was like, I wish I had known this their whole lives. I
Mhm.
realized I'm expecting my 5-year old to behave like a 13-year old, but I also
Mhm.
haven't taught them how to do it. I haven't
Mhm.
taught them the expectation and give them the repetition so that they can be successful at what it is that you're asking them to do. With my grandson, Sincere is busy.
Mhm.
He plays all the sports. He's always running. He just has so much energy. So I told my daughter, you gotta stop him and look at him. Hey, Sincere, stop.
Mhm.
Do
Mhm.
this. Okay, what you gonna
Mhm.
do? And have him repeat back, and then have him go do it. Because if you just yell from the other room, he didn't hear you. He's busy. He didn't hear a word you said. And
Yeah.
so learning those skills, I wish I had known when my kids were little, but now that I know, I got to share it with other people, because there are going to be people that are in that same position that don't have the knowledge that I had. Oh, and I don't know if it's pronounced Cam, but she said in the chat, never be too proud to apologize. And that's so important to me. Like I've had to
Mhm.
apologize to students, I
Mhm.
apologize to my kids, even still now, because I tell them I don't want my kids to repeat the things with their kids that I know that I did wrong and would do
Absolutely.
differently. I'm
Absolutely.
like, I want you to know that this wasn't the thing. Because how many times do we hear people say stuff like, well, my parents did this with me and I turned out all right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, and most of the time you did not turn out all right. You
Mm-hmm.
clearly don't see what I see. You're not all right.
And
But
sometimes they're saying that we're resentless. They're resentful. They don't want to admit it, but you know.
yeah, yeah. And so I remember this one time with one of my students, this girl was giving me all this attitude. And we were walking back from lunch to the classroom, and I went off. I was yelling and screaming at this girl, and she started crying. And then one of my boys was like, Miss Washington, you took that too far. I said, you're right. And I apologized in front of the whole class. Now I'm crying because I'm that sensitive person, but I'm crying. But I was like, I yelled at you in front of the whole class. So I'm going to apologize in front of the whole class.
I love that.
And I'm sorry, and I shouldn't have done that,
Mm-hmm.
and because it was important for me, for everybody who heard that to know that wasn't the right way to behave,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's important for us to do that with our kids. There,
Absolutely.
I don't believe in whooping kids. My kids got a whole lot of whoopings. and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I'm like, this is the way I'll handle it differently. When I became a teacher is when I realized if I can get these students to do what I need them to do without whooping them, because I can't, I should
Mm-hmm.
be able to get my kids to do what I need them to do without
Right.
whooping them. And it
Right.
just changed my whole mindset,
Right.
So
Right. Well, going
anything,
back to what you mentioned about, you could tell kids things and their parents don't get upset. We use that term as the village, and we need the village back.
yeah,
We need the village back because you can drive up right up the street on your bike, and Miss Jones know your mother said don't be in the street, but if Miss Jones see you in the street, she's gonna say something. These days you can't do that because, like you said, the relationships aren't being built, the neighbors
yeah,
are being rotated, they're not the same neighbors all the time, you know, and people in the street just, they're not even fully dressed, you know, they just coming out looking however. So the
pajamas and
kids are
bonnet.
seeing that. So yeah, so the village is not the village anymore, unfortunately. But the relationships, I think, if they're built in a community, then that's when we can potentially have that village back because we're gonna need the village.
Yeah,
We're gonna need the village.
and and the beautiful part with that is, um, I think some of that change has been because people have been very judgmental, and people feel that. So now they're like,
Mm-hmm.
just don't say nothing to me,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
versus being helpful.
Yes.
And if we come back with that being helpful and
Mm-hmm.
not just being judgmental, instead of just saying you're not doing this right, but saying, why don't you try this thing? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
notice you're having a problem with this. How about you try this thing and see if this works better?
Mm-hmm.
Then, or let me help you with this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that could be a big shift. And
Yeah.
I'm so glad to even have this. I'm glad that you mentioned being on Anaya's episode earlier. She had all the like, hey, instead of giving your kids this, give them this.
Mm-hmm.
Instead
Mm-hmm.
of she was like, I don't give them fruit snacks, but I give them dried fruit.
Right.
And I was like, that's helpful.
Yeah.
And it's not judging somebody who's doing something different, but
Absolutely.
sharing. Here's a possibility. If you try this switch, it might be better for your kids.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree.
Your oldest grandson, boy, I remember watching him ravel off all these football teams and all the players, and I was like, what kind of genius is he? Oh my God. He knew all these players and like this football, this quarterback, and so and so. And I was like, and he was what, like 5? He was probably not even 5 at that time. Probably was like 3 or
Right.
4.
Yeah.
And I was like, this little genius. I love it. Um, but I don't know what advice would you have to other parents, young parents, old parents, grandparents,
Mm.
on how to be the best we can and help the next generation be the best they can?
I would just say is take the time, be involved, you know, just be hands-on, be hands-on and open because I think it's good because having a parent like me seeing my daughter and her husband, it's important for them to have date night, and things like that. So being that myself and his mom and his family and our family, we help out with the kids. It allows them that time to have their time together because they have to have their time together to be good for their kids. But just be hands on with the kids, the parents. Every Sunday at our house, we have family day. Yesterday we were together. Yeah,
I
literally
love that.
every single Sunday we have family day, whether it's watching football, food, or whatever. We come together, and there may be some that can't do that, but whatever you can do to just be involved and hands on as much as possible, and just have that candid conversation and say I love you. Say I love you. I tell my daughter when we hang up the phone or whatever, and like I love you, whatever. Because my mother did that all the time. She would leave a voicemail like I love you, and my mother would tell a stranger I love you, and we inherited that. So I would just say just to be involved and hands on as much as possible. And if you can't, it's okay. Just try to do as much as you can, and just yeah,
I love that so much because you exude love. That's who
yeah.
you are. It's
Hmm.
not something you do, it's who you are, and that's what comes out of
Hmm.
you. And it's so good to hear that it's come down generation to generation. And they talk about today the modern grandparents ain't watching nobody's kids. But but we are not those grandparents. We
No.
are those give me them grandkids
Hmm.
grandparents.
Hmm.
And I love that because the kids need that.
Yeah.
Our kids need you get to sow that seed into their marriage, and that's into their entire family, because
Hmm.
you're willing to take your time and watch the kids so that they can have date night.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it is
Any
arranged, because my daughter, they're never just like here dropping them off. They always make sure that we are available, and when they do, we make sure we're available because they need that time.
Yep,
So it's not just all the time, and they are very conscious on making sure that they're respective of our time too. But I think it's important to give them that time so that they can, and then they do daytime with family time with the kids as well. And when
that's
they come over
good.
to the house, they see us all doing things together. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So can you tell folks where to find you? I don't know if I know sometimes you have these pop-ups online where people can come and shop with you. I don't know if you have any planned in the near future, but where can people find you if they want to, you know, um, take part in support any of your businesses?
So my Perfect Timing Fashion Boutique, that's my boutique. We're Perfect Timing Fashion Boutique on Facebook and Instagram. We're more active on Instagram. We have a website, perfecttimingboutique.com. Later on today, I'm assisting my husband with the launch of his business. So he has an apparel business. So we'll be launching that today, and it'll be online. But Perfect Timing Fashion Boutique at Instagram, Facebook, and www.perfecttimingboutique.com. It's our website. And the travel, my travel is mostly by word of mouth. Perfect Time to Travel is my Facebook page as well. Kalisha and I are in the same travel organization, so travel is king. And then we rent out our backyard for events, but that's mostly by word of mouth because it's where we lay our head. So that's
Yep.
not we don't have a website
Yep.
for that. It's just like if you've been here and if you want to rent it out, if you want to host anything, then you
Yeah.
come over and we're gonna bet you. But
Understandable.
Perfect Time and Fashion Boutique, that would be my main priority at this time.
Nice. So text me those links so I can put them in the description so folks can have those later on as well.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak
Yay.
with me and share
Oh,
some of
it's
your
been a
wisdom.
pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
This is phenomenal what you're doing. Keep doing it. I mean, I see this going like viral. Everybody needs, are you on Instagram with this as well?
I didn't go live on Instagram, but I do post clips on Instagram.
Okay, okay. Well, we need to
Yeah.
tag the Shade Room because people need to see more positive podcasts, and especially with this topic. We need to really, this podcast can be the start of the new village.
Wow.
So I think you're doing a phenomenal job. Thank you for even
Thank you.
including me. And it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Have a
You're
good one.
welcome. You too. Thank you. Bye.
Whew. My